Ladies and gentlemen, what is up and welcome to today's video where we're going to be having a bit of an in-depth chat about the newest addition to Marvel Contest of Champions, Green Goblin, a champion that we were all incredibly excited for, another notorious Spider-Man villain after that wonderful God tier champion that was Carnage. We were just all so excited for that. So another very, very famous Spider-Man villain, and I feel like, yet again, they have just completely, failed the design of this character. I feel like I see what they've tried to do in terms of, ways that you play this character, but they have just, the two fundamental problems for me is that they've kind of, dolled him up and marketed him, especially in the champion spotlight, as a power control champion. But the power control mechanics he has, especially with his special one, are so incredibly unreliable, and it's such a little payoff that it's just practically useless when it comes to effectively managing power. One of the things that I said on Twitter, and I'll say again, is if I am playing a power control champion, or if I want to bring a power control champion to defeat a certain boss, I want that power control champion to effectively and reliably control the opponent's power, not have a 40% chance to get an 8% power drain, which rolls 4 times, and on average you'll get 1 or 2 of them. Maybe if you're lucky you might get 3, maybe if you work for Kabam you might get the full 32% power drain, but on average it's going to be 8 to 16%, which is just incredibly low and just does not rival with his existing champions like Vision and Hawkeye for kind of the power drains on their special one. So that's one of the first biggest quarrels of Green Goblin, is really the unreliability of the power drain. I can totally get unreliability and randomness when it comes to stuff like damaging effects and stuns, but when you're trying to control the opponent's power, that is really the last thing anybody wants when they are playing a power control champion. So yeah, that's kind of one of the biggest things, and that the second one is this champion, has so much randomness in terms of his damage with when a super bomb can go off or not, and you can get these additional effects, but even when this pays off, his damage output is still pretty disappointing. If you draw comparisons between Green Goblin and one of the newer God tier champions like Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, which has a crazy payoff in terms of his damage, Stark Enhanced Spider-Man is hitting at least 3 to 4 times harder than Green Goblin under some of the best scenarios. So yeah, that's also kind of one of the slight issues with this character, is there are very skill-based ways to play him, and we'll talk about those and kind of how his cunning and madness interacts. And yeah, I'm gonna basically tell you how I would fix this character to change him from a very underwhelming character that relies just on crazy randomness that is pretty much never gonna pay off, to an amazing skill-based champion that is perfectly balanced and has a really good learning curve as you get better at certain stuff like parrying and intercepting. So one of the first things that Green Goblin has, one of his kind of core mechanics, is this balance between madness and cunning. Now, when you're playing this character, the way that you get stacks of madness, you'll gain 1 every time that you parry, and madness basically will cause you to regenerate 60% of any damage taken from basic attacks, and also cause your opponents to deal 30% less special damage. So, when you're playing the character, if you're fairly skilled, you're fairly good, this doesn't really impact you too much at all. So madness, isn't really the desired state to be in, but both the madness and cunning effects are active if you have, for example, equal charges of both. So if you have 2 madness, 2 cunning, you gain both of the effects. And the cunning one is whenever Green Goblin gains a 4 bar of power, he gains Cunning, and Cunning charges last 20 seconds, and while Green Goblin has more Cunning than Madness, or the 2 are equal, the opponents generate 40% less power, and Green Goblin gains plus 30% attack on special attacks. So while you're piloting the champion, in the majority of scenarios, Cunning is by far the best state to be in. Now, what I really kind of like initially in terms of the design between Madness and Cunning is the fact that if you are one of the players that really relies on parrying quite a bit, you're most likely going to have more charges of Madness than Cunning most of the time. So this is a character that on the ground of it really rewards players who have spent that time to learn how to intercept, because if you're not relying on parrying and you can just keep on intercepting, then your cunning is always going to be equal to or greater than the amount of madness you have, depending on, you know, how many parries you're throwing out there. So I see what they've tried to do with the madness and cunning design. They've tried to make it so that you're kind of like decently rewarded, you know, if you can kind of maintain you know, that cunning stance and your intercepts are going off really well. But the reward, as we spoke about earlier with the damage of this champion, still is not enough. He is still a very underwhelming character. So the first thing that I'd like to see added, and I think this would just be a really cool addition, I'd like to see kind of a buff called Insanity, which is when both of these are balanced, it gives you like a huge amount of crit rating, say like plus 2000 crit rating and plus 20% attack. So that becomes an additional bit of skill to manage, which is going to, you know, increase the character's damage output to make him even better. But that's just kind of a very small thing. I think one of the big change by far that I want to see to this champion is made to a special one. Like the power drain, it's honestly on a special one is my biggest quirk with this champion by far, that it's just so like crap and unreliable. So the change that I make to the special one power drain, instead of a 40% chance to power drain 8% power, I changed that to a 100% chance to power drain. It could be reduced to like 6 to 7% power if it's considered a little bit, you know, too OP, but I think even at 8% power, that still rivals kind of existing champions like Hawkeye and Vision. It's a very similar number, so, you know, I don't really see that being a problem for the most part. But I would like a second component added onto the Laser Blast, which is similar to Dormammu's Special 2. I'd like to see a 5-second power lock on it. That would mean that after you fight off the Special 1, because he does like, what is it, the smoke bomb on the ground, like 4 laser shots and then throws a bomb, it will give you like 4 seconds of power lock. So that if in those 4 seconds you could get an intercept straight away, you could probably do a full combo and your opponent gain absolutely no power from that. However, if you're a little bit, you know, down the skill ladder and you need to do a parry, you're still going to be able to get like 2 or 3 hits without giving the opponent any power. And, you know, if you're still a little bit of a noob or can't take that kind of super aggressive gameplay in, then you don't get any benefit from the power lock. So I think that would just be a really cool way to make the champion super viable, and, you know, it just increasingly rewards you the better you get at kind of fundamentally mastering some of the most complicated stuff to do, like intercepting. So I think that's really cool, and I think between those two changes, you know, it just hits two things like directly on the head. It solves this champion's problem with reliability in terms of power control. It gives the champion like a really good skill curb, kind of effectively managing the cunning and madness throughout every single fight to kind of maximize your damage output. I think that's pretty cool. So I think really, as simple as those changes might sound, I think they would make a world of difference for this character, who I currently predict is just, you know, after the fact that he's Green Goblin and the hype goes down a little bit, I think he's just going to be on the bench for the majority of people, because he's underwhelming, unreliable champion. So yeah, a little bit disappointed on Green Goblin's design, but hey, you know, if the Kabam devs are listening, if they are open to suggestions, I think those two things would change this champion from a bit of a dud to like an amazing or demigod tier champion that kind of has a viable use, is a bit of a rewarding skill step up from characters like Hawkeye and Vision. So yeah, I just really like to see those changes, because I love Green Goblin. They've done an exceptional job on the animations, but really I just think they've kind of botched it when it comes to a lot of his design in terms of abilities. I just don't really see any scenario at the moment where this character has a good use. Even talking on like what is it, the recommended the strengths and weaknesses of this character, like, yeah, the two strengths apparently of Green Goblin is Alliance War Defense, and they say it can be very hard to avoid getting hit by Green Goblin's Special 2 attack, which from the initial live stream we did when we explored this event in Green Goblin, like we pretty much evaded it on the first try. Like, it's a very easy Special 2 attack to deal with. Like, it's just a few evades, not very difficult at all. And then they're also talking about like denying opponents from gaining power. That's another strength for the champion. So yeah, yeah, whoever wrote this, they just seem like a little bit out of touch without, you know, with exactly what the champion is. Because, yeah, I think this is, like, terrible, terrible, like, example of what Green Goblin is good at. I don't really believe he's exceptional or anything yet. I feel like he might have a little bit of strength on Alliance War defense as a bit of an unfamiliar defender until people get used to his animations. But aside from that, like, I'm not really seeing any reason to bring, like, Green Goblin something like Alliance War when there are champions that either, you know, have much better damage output, or in terms of, like, power control, can much more reliably control the fight, like a Magic or Hawkeye Vision. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of my suggested changes, and also the design of Green Goblin in the comments below. Am I being a little bit too harsh? Do you think I hit the nail on the head with this one? Like, I'm really interested to get a little bit more perspective on this. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Take care and have an absolutely fantastic day.